response there too. I need also for 143-318-11A9, prevent disclosure of confidential personnel information under NCGS Chapter 115C, Article 21A, and student information under the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act, citing 143-318-11A3, consult with an attorney in order to provoke the attorney-client privilege in the attorney and the public body which is hereby acknowledged. Do I have that motion? I didn't catch that.
So moved, Mr.
Let me
Chair.
come that way. Yeah.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Helms. All those in favor?
Aye.
Now we'll move.
Okay. How in the world are you?
Summer will grab it.
Yes, I'm gonna back to my money
No.
first.
Are you after?
We're number 13.
There we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call this meeting to order. We will do it with our invocation. Ms. Harrell?
Let us pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the opportunity that you've allowed for us to be here gathered together at Sandy Ridge Elementary School. I ask you, dear Father God, to please continue to be with us, lead us, guide us, and help us through all things that we do for the children here in Union County. I want to thank you, dear Father God, for how you blessed us and covered everybody yesterday that was involved in the accident. Things on this earth are going to happen, but dear Father God, we can rest assured that you're in control of all things, and no one was injured to a point that their lives have been altered in a major way. And for that, on behalf of everybody under the sound of my voice, I just want to say thank you. Also, dear Lord, I ask you to please let each of us, whether we be a new member to the board or a member that has served for a while, please let us come together and be of the same heart and mind to do what we were elected to do as school board members. That every decision, every thought, anything that we do is done for the benefit of the children and their families. In Jesus' name, I do humbly pray. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Harrell. Boyd?
Okay, and we'll now have the Pledge of Allegiance by Sandy Ridge Student Council President Leslie Boyd, Summer Boyd. Oh my gosh. The other Summer Boyd.
We all stand, please. Find the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Boyd, would you just stand there for a moment? I think we have an emissary coming around to give you your.
Thank you. Would you like to stand for a picture?
Okay. And yeah, got it. We'll do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we come to the approval of the agenda. And before we approve the agenda, I would like to, am I okay? Interrupt me anytime you'd like, Dr. Ellis. I'd like to make a couple of small changes. Item number 18, the alternative accountability model is information, not action. And that's specifically for you board members. Item 20, policies for approval.
We want to remove policy D 4-13, school assignment for further review.
I'll pull that and it will be sent back to policy committee. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple quick questions. I notice on the agenda, we don't have an approval of minutes from the last meeting.
Sometimes we approve minutes, sometimes we don't. It depends on how fast they are reviewed by our legal staff.
Okay.
Right. They might not be approved this month. We'll maybe approve 2 sets next month or whatever.
Okay.
We
All right.
don't, sometimes we approve minutes, sometimes we don't in a timely fashion. Other times it's when legal staff gets through with the review on them.
Okay.
Right.
All right. I'd also like to ask that we pull off the consent agenda, the school wires contract. I have a couple quick questions on that. Item 8B. And I have an addition I'd like to request to be added to the agenda, which would be a discussion of the BOE BOCC working group. Request that be added at the appropriate place on the agenda, please.
What would you like to discuss about that in particular?
About which?
The BOC.
Which one?
The working groups.
Well, I have some questions how that was set up and how we move forward on that. So I think it's relevant since we have a new board and they will be meeting on Thursday, that an opportunity to come up to speed and have some questions and concerns that I have addressed. So I request that be added to the agenda.
So that we can let staff know and they can prepare for such questions. I'd prefer not to spring that out here.
Well, since they are meeting this Thursday night, I don't think we can wait another month. So I'd respectfully request that it be added. I don't think I have any earth-shattering questions or issues that we can't address.
I really would prefer that you let me know these before we come in here. As you say, it's been on the agenda. We've talked a couple of times. You could have said, Mr. Collins, let's add that. I like to know what's going on before we get here, but we'll go ahead and add it to the agenda.
Thank you.
But, okay, so we're going to pull school wires contract and make that, let's make that 9A.
You got TQE presentation and the recognition, how about making it 10A?
10A. Okay, let's make it 10A. For the working, yeah, let's just make it 10B since we're adding it.
All right.
And we're making the TQE presentation 9A and 9B, correct?
No, it would stay 9 and 10, and you got 10A and 10B.
Oh, 10A and 10B, okay. All right, I gotta get this straight.
I'll make a motion. We approve the agenda as amended.
And I have a second. Thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
And at that point, we've approved the agenda. Let's move on to Ms. Helms, please, with the John H. Crowder Service Award.
Okay. Each month, we recognize a high school student with the John H. Crowder Award for Community Service. Board members, if you'd walk around the front of the table so you can help me honor our January recipient. This award is a living tribute to the late John H. Crowder, who spent more than 31 years serving the children of Union County. It's important to keep his memory alive and what he did for the children of Union County. Criteria for winning the award are students must not only be academically successful, but they must also have an established history of community service in one or more service area and with one or more organization. Individual schools have developed a process whereby teachers, counselors, parents, and or students may John H. Crowder Service Award to a very special young woman from Marvin Ridge High School. Would Natalie Huffman please come forward? Natalie's principal, Dana Cook, says that Natalie's community service involvement is extensive. She participates in service projects with clubs within her school, including Future Business Leaders of America, which includes which she has been a member for 3 years. This includes in volunteering at regional tournaments, as well as various community events. Natalie also volunteers with ground beautification and other needs that her school may have. Within her neighborhood, she volunteers to help with seasonal parties and oversees children's activities, along with other aspects of ensuring successful community events. She volunteers at Metrolina Regional Scholars Academy. She judges science fair and advises 8th graders as they prepare for high school. As a member of St. Matthew's Catholic Church, Natalie has volunteered to oversee audio-visual and technical aspects of the worship service for the past 2 years at 2 different church locations. Natalie has taught faith format classes for 4 years, including kindergarten students and 9th graders who are completing their confirmation process. Natalie, a 17-year-old senior, participates in the International Baccalaureate program at Marvin Ridge and plans to pursue a degree in computer science in college. We are very pleased tonight to present the January John H. Crowder Service Award to Natalie Huffman. Here to support Natalie tonight is her mother, Suzanne Huffman, and her principal, Donna Cook. Would you congratulate champion for children. Congratulations, Natalie.
Board members, that concludes the special recognitions for tonight. May I take a minute about our status on YouTube? I want to make everyone aware, please, that we are live on YouTube. However, if someone is trying to access the meeting through our server, they may be encountering some difficulties. We're currently working on that, but if you're accessing it through YouTube, it is working fine. So I don't know if you need to text somebody or let them know, but that's the status. And as soon as Ms. Stalbert tells me we have the issues worked out, we'll be glad to let you know. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Did you say no special recognitions tonight?
Right, that's what I said.
Good. About that. We come to the public comments section of our agenda, and I have to read a nice little disclaimer for everyone. 30 minutes has been allotted for public comments. Community members wishing to speak during public comments should state their name, address, and phone number prior to making their comments. The board will not hear in open session complaints about the performance of school personnel, confidential student issues. Individuals may address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes. Any person who is representing a group may address the board for a maximum of 5 minutes. And we have a timer in place, I believe. We do. Be shared during public comments. Our deputy superintendents are available to address your concerns or provide information. Tonight we are served by Dr. Webb, I believe, as our Deputy Superintendent of Instructional Technology and Operation. Well, Dr. Webb, would you raise your hand? Thank you. Anybody that needs Dr. Webb can find him there. And with that, we have 3 people signed up to speak, and we will take you in order. Miss Pamela Carlton, I believe.
Good evening and Happy New Year. My name is Pamela Carlton, and I am an exceptional children teacher here at Sandy Ridge. But tonight I'm addressing you on behalf of Union County. I reside at 3806 Chattanooga Drive in Monroe, and my phone number is 704-282-0181. There's not a lot going on in the state right now because the legislators are just getting back and they're getting ready for their sessions. But do know that things are going to get rolling real soon, and so we're watching and we're listening very close. So I come tonight with just information about the North Carolina final exams. As the state continues to revamp the curriculum and the essential standards and create new assessments pursuant to the state's board policy, DPI is providing LEAs and charters with the opportunity to request waivers from the North Carolina final exam process for the 2014-2015 school year. So far in the states, there have been 36 school districts who have asked for waivers so far. So I'm not sure if Union County plans to do so. The district's reason for filing the waivers is because the North Carolina final exam performance in relation to the Standard 6 and the Standard 8 of the North Carolina Education Evaluation System. Both the teacher and the school executive evaluation processes include student growth component. How can an educator show growth if he or she has to keep changing what they teach? And the state keeps changing the assessments and the curriculum. It's not fair to the educators of this state. If Union County completes a waiver for our district, this will allow the teachers and the students ample time to show growth while the state decides on something concrete to test the students on. So I just want to share that information. I'm not sure if we decided as a district if we were going to file a waiver or not to allow these teachers time, to be able to show growth with their students and with themselves. They shouldn't be held accountable for something that the state hasn't decided on yet. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And that's pretty much it. This does not get easy. Wow. So thank you. Have a good evening.
Our next speaker will be Sabrina Hutto, please.
Good evening. My name is Sabrina Hutto. I reside at 412 Lynn Point Lane, Monroe, North Carolina, 28110. My phone number is 704-242-0290. Good evening, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and fellow board members. I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you this evening regarding recent revisions made to School Board Policy 4-13, specifically revisions that would affect Union County employees and their children that attend our schools that are above the watch level. During my winter break, I was alerted that the January agenda had been posted to the district website, seeking approval of the policy, amongst others. I was panic-stricken. I didn't sleep. I didn't want to return to work in a few short days with this weighing ever so heavy on my mind. What would I do? What would my family do? Where would my girls go to school? When I returned to school yesterday, I quickly learned that my feelings were shared by many staff members within the Cuthbertson cluster. Hallway conversations, meetings after school, what would we do? I am a product of Union County. I graduated from Monroe High School and sought my teaching degree, my childhood dream. I returned to Union County Public Schools to teach at Newtown Elementary School in 2007 when the school opened. I was ready to make the school my home. Over the past 8 years, Newtown Elementary School has become just that, my home, in more ways than one. I spend more hours at school than I do at my home. Sadly, I can also tell you that many times I put my school family, my students, before my own family. Standing here today, I am proud to be a teacher and parent at Newtown Elementary School. My daughter is 7 and is currently in the 1st grade and loves it. I know there are few times that teachers are able to attend and give back to their children's schools. By allowing teachers and staff to bring their children to schools with them, it allows for us to participate in their education just as any other parent. I love the time that I get to see my daughter at school in the hallways, attend her parties, and watch her grow and learn along her peers. These are moments that we cherish as parents while our children are young. These moments are only possible for us teachers by having our children attend the schools in which we teach. In 2 years, I hope to bring my youngest daughter to Newtown as well to begin her elementary education. As you know, in education, we don't receive many perks. However, the one perk is being able to have our own professional children attend the school in which we work or within our cluster. On the first day back to school after winter break, Dr. Ellis and Dr. Jones took over an hour to listen to our concerns and share their feedback. My voice, a proud teacher of Union County Public Schools, mattered to them, and I hoping that my voice as well as others will matter to you tonight. I appreciate that school board policy was removed from the agenda this evening, and I ask that you please consider revising it.
Ms. Hutto,
Yes, sir.
your time's up.
Thank you. I
I
appreciate it.
respectfully ask you to stop.
Thank you, sir.
I get your message, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Emily Newsom.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Emily Newsom, and I live in Waxhaw in the Demere community at 4818 St. Simon's Terrace, Waxhaw, North Carolina, 28173. My phone number is 704-243-4207. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you as a Union County resident, as a Union County employee, teacher at Newtown Elementary, and most importantly, as a parent. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about my concerns regarding the agenda item 20D, Union County Public Schools Policy 4-13, school assignment. I appreciate the board's decision to send this policy back to the policy committee for further consideration. As you return to committee, I ask you to review the supporting documents and please consider a change under the section regarding no transfers to to schools designated as a watch level. As a teacher at Newtown Elementary, this directly affects myself and my family. When returning to teaching in 2012, one of the reasons why I chose Union County Public Schools is because we were already a part of the Newtown Elementary school family. My children both attend Newtown Elementary. My son is in the 5th grade. He is the student council president. My daughter is in the 2nd grade, and she loves her school. I was also the PTA president there and participated on many communities, committees, and participated as a volunteer at Newtown. Another reason why I chose Union County Public Schools was the opportunity to have my children attend the school in which the cluster that I taught. As a parent, this is important to me. At times, I am the only parent who is there to ready my children for school each morning. Restricting student transfers to at watch schools means that I would struggle to safely ensure that my child would arrive at their own respective schools safely each day. As I talked with colleagues as I returned to school this week about the possible changes in policy, I realized that I was not the only parent who would struggle with this. When we all wondered what we should do, we decided to do the only thing that we could do. We came to you. We came to take action. I'm here to ask you to please reconsider the policy changes. As you look, please think of your teachers and of their children. I ask you to please look specifically at the allowance of children of Union County Public Schools employees to continue transfers to school at watch level or above, or at the very least, allow current employees of their children to be grandfathered into their cluster. Thank you for your time.
Comments? Number 8 is consent agenda. We've already fully wires contract. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion to approve. Second. Stewart, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Unanimous, thank you. And now we will see the TQE presentation, Mr. Eversole.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to Sandy Ridge. Thank you all so much for coming. We are going to showcase our 2nd grade this evening. They have been working on project-based learning, which is an initiative that kind of started up here last year as well. Kind of in a nutshell, it's using all disciplinaries to create projects and work collaboratively to create a final project where they need to present those, and it's teaching a lot of 21st century skills. So I'm going to turn it over to them. I hope you all enjoy. It is probably going to be a little interactive as well. You may be asked a question, so please answer.
If we can.
Good evening. My name is Laura Leiser, and these are my 2nd grade colleagues. Chelsea Clemens, Andrea Wisniewski, Kim Spencer. The mic's not on. Hello? Talk close. Is that good?
Yeah, better.
All right. All right. Round 2. My name is Laura Leiser, and these are my 2nd grade colleagues, Chelsea Clemens, Andrea Wisniewski, Kim Spencer, and April Pack. And we were very excited to try out a project-based learning unit with our group of 2nd grade students. The kids matched our enthusiasm to learn more about bats when they were presented with this opportunity. Project-based learning, or PBL, as it's called, is a student-driven, cross-curricular, inquiry-based way of learning that incorporates authentic learning, 21st century skills, communication skills, critical thinking skills, problem-solving skills, and community involvement. Because one of our school goals is to put more technology into the hands of our students, we included guided research through the use of laptops, PowerPoint presentations, and video clips.
Our responsibility as teachers in this PBL unit was to incorporate Common Core standards while facilitating the students' inquiries and research. The students' responsibilities were to inquire, investigate, plan, and produce a product, presentation, or a performance. We began the unit with a driving question. How does the disappearance of bats affect our community, and how can we help the bats? We incorporated a science standard by also asking, how do bats navigate to fly? The students were challenged to ask more questions about bats to help them answer that larger driving question.
The students started guided research through books and websites. Through implementation of Common Core state standards such as researching, note-taking, communication skills, paragraph writing, knowledge of nonfiction text features, and understanding main idea and details, the students were then able to apply their knowledge about bats. Throughout the unit, the children collaborated with partners to research and compose informational text. They also created a life cycle poster, 2- and 3-dimensional bats, and designed their very own bat house.
The students picked a group presentation style. They could choose from a presentation through a dramatic skit, a news broadcast, a big book, or public speech, with visuals to demonstrate their understanding. To culminate our unit of study about bats, we had an expert naturalist come speak to the children and share her wisdom and enthusiasm about bats. She brought with her some live prey, predators, and hands-on experiences.
At the completion of the project, the students changed their way of thinking about bats. Originally, we all believed the common myths about bats, being scary and dangerous. Through our research, we discovered that bats are important to our community and that their disappearance would impact our environment. We took this information one step further by promoting awareness in our school community on the morning news program to show the importance of bats. And then we asked for support by asking for donations to adopt a bat from the international organization. Here are a few myths and facts and questions that the students have shared with our school. Please try and answer our questions tonight and test your own knowledge about bats. Here's my student Luke and Kelly, and they're going to share.
Bats is that they are worthless. So not true. Bats are very, very useful. They help control the bugs each night. One cave in Texas is home to 20 million Mexican free-tailed bats. Together, they munch 250 tons of insects every night.
Insect-eating bats keep the bug population down. Your question is, how are fruit bats useful to our community?
Anyone know how are fruit bats useful to our community? Any guesses?
Fruit-eating bats help by pollinating flowers and dropping seeds from many trees and bushes. They pollinate many of the fruits and nuts that we enjoy eating, like bananas and mangoes, to nuts, dates, and figs.
And I'm lucky to have Emma Lieberman.
One myth is that bats are scary and we shouldn't worry about saving them. Absolutely not. We need to help the bats because of how useful they are to our world. People are disturbing their caves, trees, and other homes. Some kinds of bats are in danger of dying out. One way we can help bats is to make a bat house. Another way to help is to teach others their importance and correct the myths about bats. We should also leave bats alone when we see them in the wild.
Some bats live together in smaller, large families or groups. A bat house would give a group of bats is called a colony. Bats roost in caves, trees, abandoned mines, under bridges, and sometimes in attics. They like tight, dark places. If you don't want a bat in your attic, you should get a bat house for your backyard.
And I have McKenna Martin and John Michael Hornberger.
Another common myth about bats is that they suck our blood. That's crazy. Actually, only 3 species of bats, known as vampire bats, that suck blood, and they only do that from animals. Most bats eat fruit, nectar, and insects, including mosquitoes, crickets, beetles, and other pests. Other bats catch frogs, small birds, mice, and even other small bats. Some bats even grab small fish out of the water. Vampire bats can be found in parts of Central and South America. Your question is, what country in North America can we also find vampire bats? Vampire bats can be found in the tropics of Mexico.
I have Brady Hornberger and Kelly Todd with me tonight.
Another myth about bats is that they are birds. Not a chance. Bats and birds are alike in some ways, but very different in other ways. They're different because they have fur and birds have feathers. Bats and birds have wings. Your question is, how many fingers do bats have? Almost. Bats have 5 fingers on each wing, so they have a total of 10 fingers. They have thumbs that they use to help them climb and hang while they are giving birth.
And our last speakers, Michael Keller and Emily Hunter.
Another myth about bats is that they are blind. No way! Bats actually see just as well as any other mammal. They use a special type of sonar to help them navigate and hunt insects in total darkness. Your question is, what is the name for this sonar bats use to navigate? Bats use echolocation to find their way. They give off high-pitched sounds that bounce off objects and come back to their ears as an echo. Bats use echolocation to find food and navigate at night.
Thank you very much for allowing us the opportunity to share our project-based learning unit with you.
I need to say that was bat-tastic. And Ms. Morris here has bat houses in her backyard. So, excuse me, one. So she was up here answering your questions, okay? All right.
And they're the intelligent ones. I thought it was about baseball. Want me to announce that? We're back online, I hear, and everything is fine. Is that true, Ms. Stelberte? Yes. Thank you. We have a TQ&E presentation.
Union County Board of Education proudly recognizes Sandy Ridge Elementary School for teaching and living Union County Public Schools core values, for establishing a school climate that prizes quality, innovation, and continuous improvement in student learning, citizenship, and social responsibility. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, my second grade. Mr. Nolan.
I'll be happy to take a minute or so walking to my seat if some parents and children need to get home. What would you rather say? There's homework and TV.
We will now take that item that we moved from the consent agenda to school wires contract. Mr. Sides, you have the floor, sir.
No, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have a quick question or two. As I understand, it's a new master agreement for new websites. Our prorated cost for the remainder of this year, we're looking at 47,000 and change, and then the full year would be 65,160. Could somebody explain the subsidized by Champions of Education program? It's marked yes. Is that what that entails? Did you want to mention, because you mentioned it in.
The second part of the contract is actually for 2 years. Now, it's from 15 to 17.
Okay. Up here on the listing, it says subsidized by Champions of Education program. Is that some kind of grant to offset the cost or some kind of reimbursement for the cost?
Okay.
Oh.
I could take a look at that. There is no grant and there is no reimbursement.
Subsidized. It's on the master agreement on the first page. Okay.
I'm trying to call it up.
To our knowledge, and I'm looking like her, I know no subsidy accounts. I know that Mr. Burris and Ms. Stolbert and Dr. Whitmore put the contract. Do you know who the subsidies get through?
No, ma'am.
Not at all.
Okay.
But we will certainly
I'll
research.
take a look at that.
Well, I didn't know if that was anything that would help offset the cost. Here's my concern, and I may be the only one, but whatever. We're looking at a substantial investment for this program, and later on in the agenda, we're setting up or approving a petition to deliver to the state because of the loss of funding for our driver ed program. And I'm just wondering if perhaps we should consider delaying this expenditure until we have a clearer picture that the funds for driver education would be reinstated by the state, and that might be a more prudent use of the funds. And if appropriate, I'll make the motion that this contract be tabled until subsequent discussions are available for the upcoming fiscal year budget and we have better direction from the state.
Dr. Ellis, Mr. Science, if I could add something to the discussion, perhaps.
Please.
One of the reasons that the communications department moved in this direction of outsourcing their website is because a system, any school systems, they're most vulnerable coming into the website because you want that open to the public. So part of the reason is that would be now hosted off-site.
Right.
So for cybersecurity,
right,
that's one of the reasons, because we are attacked quite often, and again, that compromises the entire system and has shut us down before.
Has shut us down. We've been very vulnerable, and there are multiple security issues that I'm not going to tell all of the folks all over the world about the
how to do it.
security issues. And other systems have migrated to something of this where the information is more protected, and we are trying to follow suit with that. Our website is, it went down a couple years ago, I think everybody remembers that. We've been hacked. We have opportunities to prove our mettle on a repeated and ongoing basis with regards to cybersecurity, and that's all I feel comfortable saying in an open setting here. It is as much for security as it is for anything, but certainly.
Correct. And the cost of shutting our system down far exceeds the cost of the school wires contract.
Well, I understand. I mean, I spend a good dollar on the website for my business. I certainly understand security as well. My concern is here we are concerned about loss of funds for a very mandatory program, an unfunded mandate we could potentially see from the state. And doing this expenditure in the same time. And I have a concern with that. I would prefer that this be tabled until we have a clearer picture of what the state's going to do. And hopefully through the efforts of a lot of good people, those funds for driver education, among other things, like our teacher assistants, et cetera, will be reinstated. But that's my opinion. And if I'm the only one holding that opinion, then so be it. But thank you.
Question. The funding for this is under what category? I mean, could we use this money elsewhere? I know that we have certain pots, like, that have to come from certain areas. So could we even use this money for driver's ed?
I would look at Dan. I think, Dan, you were planning on using local funds for this. Am I correct in that?
That's right. What to use instructional material supply funds. So material and supplies would be the category that this would come out of.
So 61 money, would be, you're talking about state money, Dan, or local money?
It could be a combination of both, but the source would be that either state or local material supply funds.
Well, I don't want to keep us here all night, but here's what I'll do. I'll just make a motion that this expenditure be tabled until later discussions when the fiscal year budget from the state and the county become clearer, and we can readdress this acquisition then, hopefully this summer. I'll offer that motion. If I don't get a second, don't get a favorable vote, then we'll just move on.
We do have information about Champions of Education underwriting.
Yeah. What it appears is the Champions of Education underwriting program is something within School Wires itself, and they seek sponsors to help reduce the cost of their services to school districts. And they have an integrity policy about who they won't accept money from, et cetera. But it is, I can send that information if the board would like that.
That comes from the vendor. That has nothing to do with us, correct?
And it's nothing that we applied for. It's a program that they have internally to help reduce costs.
All right. So it's not right. Okay.
I have a motion.
I have a question. What's the ramifications of us holding off on this for a month or 2 months? What impact does that? I'm sorry. What impact does that have?
We would have to
on?
renegotiate the contract. What is set now is set to get us now through June to get us going and started. Then the next 2 years is for maintenance, more training, and all that going forward. So we would have to renegotiate with School Wires.
And I will tell you that we are people. I guess some people call it sport to try to infiltrate systems. And we are regularly and routinely, people try to hack us. And we've invested in some equipment in the last budget cycle to try to prevent that. And I don't. That's all I'm going to say about that, because I just.
Let me say this. I work in IT and technology, and over the holiday, the firm I work for, our system was compromised, and there's a definite cost in having to recover from such a situation. And as you said, the cost can be much more than the prevention that you could put in place ahead of time. So I understand your point, Mr. Sides, but I think that being vulnerable throughout the rest of the year and until we can get this in is probably not the best course of action from an IT and perspective for the schools.
Can I stop us here just for a moment? We are involved in a deep discussion about something that has not received a second. And theoretically, if we have a motion on the floor, we should have a motion and a second, and then the discussion, and then the vote. So we got ourselves a little backwards, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. But the discussion is fruitless if we don't have a second. And at this point, I hear no second. So the motion will die for lack of a second, and the discussion can take place. Mr. Sides, you can ask those questions of staff at your leisure and maybe get more information than you currently have to make you feel more comfortable with it.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve item 10A is its School Wires contract.
And does that have a second? A second from Mr. Guzman. All those in favor of the schools wires contract, please raise your hand, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
Mr. Sides.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we come to 10B, which is the working groups. Mr. Sides again.
Well, I have some questions. I tried to go back in the minutes to find out some questions I had about how the group was set up. I know why it was set up. It was mandated by in the special legislation by Raleigh. But I had some questions. I attended most all of the meetings, but I do not recall the process where the members of the working group were selected and or approved by the board. And after the election now, the county side has 2 elected officials, including the chairman, and the Board of Education portion has just 1 board member. And I feel it would be prudent that we have two elected Board of Education members on the working group. And I would prefer, Mr. Chairman, to be a part of the group, or you could appoint the liaisons between the Board of Education and the county commissioners, and they could serve. But I have some questions about how the group membership was selected and approved, and I don't feel comfortable with the makeup of the working group moving forward. And since they are meeting Thursday, I felt this is an issue that needed to be addressed tonight. Can somebody give me the history on how exactly all the BOE representatives were selected?
I'm sure the board can step in. It was done by law that we had to have the working group, 7 members on each side. I don't believe the makeup of the board was handed down by law. It is normally the chairman's prerogative to name committees. This is a standing committee at this point, based on the law. And I think that this committee has gone far enough down this path of instruction and debate and meeting that I feel, in my position, it is not advantageous to replace members on that committee. No one has resigned from that committee to me, and I feel like we're represented as well as we can be, expect to be represented at this point. And so that's where my decision lies on that, Mr. Sides.
Well, I'll have to respectfully disagree. I attended the first meeting, most of it anyway, and where it was left, I don't feel like it would be a problem for anybody to jump in. I have a problem without having 2 elected board members. I don't feel comfortable with the makeup of the group. And again, I will lend to the comments of the group, if any.
I can only say that I'm comfortable at this point, and I think the discussion ceases unless you have some sort of motion you need to make, sir.
I make a motion that we reappoint the members of the Board of Education Working Group, that the chairman be instructed to reappoint the group with a minimum of 2 elected officials from the current Board of Education.
So you're going to take away my authority to appoint my committees?
No, sir. I'm asking you to appoint the committee.
Well, essentially by making a motion to overrule what I've already appointed.
Have you appointed them? I don't believe we have in the minutes that you have actually appointed these members. You just said you don't want to make any changes.
I have upheld it at this point. Is there a second to that motion? Okay, so discussion ends there.
Let's move on.
And Mr. Sides, you and I have both talked about this previously,
Right.
Correct?
And I disagreed with that, so I felt it needed to come before the whole board, which I believe is my right as an elected member to do.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to start out with, I guess, the saddest part. Since our last meeting, I'm sure everyone under the sound of this voice knows that we've lost a fine man, Mr. McManus, right before Christmas in an accident involving another vehicle. And then yesterday was probably the most horrendous day I've ever put in, going to the scene of that accident and seeing that I just thank the heavens above that the children are going to be safe physically. I know there's going to have to be some emotional healing. I understand that. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen. And I want to make sure that I state that I'm grateful and thankful that the children are okay. And I'm hopeful that the driver of the vehicle, she's also a parent of a couple of our children, that I wish her a speedy recovery and a full recovery, and her 2-year-old. And in addition, I need to say that in the midst of all that horror yesterday, I saw I was just amazed. The church where the staging area was, the pastor came out and offered us use of his building. He had a funeral scheduled there at 10 o'clock, but until the funeral, he offered us use of his building. The State Highway Patrol, the gentlemen there were exemplary, very professional, very helpful, very caring. The Union County Sheriff's Office, those ladies and gentlemen, I've taught them or their children or worked with them, a lot of them, and could not ask for better men and women. The EMTs, I called Cindy Cotto, Ms. Cotto, the county manager this morning to relay my appreciation for what the county did. And then I also called Mr. Adams, the EMS manager, and then I called Unionville EMT, Mr. Billy Canuck. He's the leader there, to thank each one of them on behalf of all of us in Union County for their work. It was, given the catastrophic nature, everybody had a job and everybody did their job. And it was not my turf or this is my way. It was what's best for the injured and what's best for the families. So I want to state publicly how grateful I am for those services that sometimes get overlooked, but they rose to the occasion yesterday. And I know that always there's rumor, there's innuendo, there's different things going on. The school system will have no opinion on this until the investigation is finished, and then it will go to the Attorney General's office because it is the yellow school bus, and that's covered under North Carolina's tort liability. And so folks have asked, well, Dr. Ellis, what do you think? I think I'm glad the children are going to be okay. And so I want to make sure I state that. But it was just god-awful is what it was. And I'll just leave it at that. I need to report to you that, here's some other stuff. Let me get it out. That our insurance carrier has settled in the matter of Richmond versus the UCBOE for a minor injury for $30,000 on the behalf of the Board of Education. I also need to report to you, well, let me get to my report now. In December, I attended the superintendent's leadership retreat there were 90 of the 115 superintendents there, and we unanimously asked state superintendent to enact next year the 10-point grading scale as opposed to it phasing in over 3 or 4 years. I can't imagine being a teacher having this child is on a 7-point scale, this child is on a 10-point scale. So she was going to take that to the state board, I believe, later this week. I want to make sure you're aware of that. Also, Parkwood Middle School's drama classes, I presented a living historical museum. Several of us were invited there, and it was exemplary. The children did a fabulous job, and they portrayed characters throughout history. I also met with our high school student advisory council. Those are 4 or 5 juniors and seniors from each high school. And I asked them to talk with us about anti-bullying or bullying. You know, we adults have done everything we know to try to solve bullying. And we can have all the rules and procedures and everything in the world, but if children are a mind to bully, they're going to bully. And so I asked the children, what are you going to do? And they're in the process now of each school coming up with a plan that the children are going to lead, the students are going to lead to try to reduce bullying in our schools. And bullying comes in all shapes and sizes. And my guess is some of you sitting around the table up here were bullied as children, and some of you sitting out in the audience. So this is a problem. And the students, I've talked with them before, and they have been most vocal. And they're going to take a whack at solving the problem. So that was a really good meeting. And each of the high school principals came and met with these young people and pledged their resources and time to work with this. In addition, I'm happy to announce that Porter Ridge High School Band of Pirates was the winner of the parade, the Christmas parade, and I was privileged to go there, and they received a $500 check. I believe next December they have been invited to participate in the December 7th services in Hawaii, and they're raising money for that, and the money's going to go there. And that is, this past year we had our Sun Valley High School Junior ROTC group that went and participated. They sent me pictures from there that they'd taken, and the children and their booster club raised money for them to go. So the Band of Pirates is going next year. Also need to let you know that the William Friday Center, it's in a wing of NC State University, has visited a few school systems throughout the state to come up with a digital learning plan for the rest of the state. And Union County was identified as one of the leaders in digital learning in North Carolina. They spent a day with us, and I would just say that the guy that led it came out and he gave me his card, and I said, well, thank you, sir. He said, no, I'd like to be hired in Union County to work if you got a place. And I'm going, wow, I guess that's the ultimate seal of approval. But we did, our teachers talked to them without any of us present. Our students talked without any of us present. And then we had different groups, working groups that talked with them. And they've been charged with coming up with a plan for the state to enact digital learning statewide. One thing that the general populace may not be aware of is that our maintenance folks have a golf tournament every year. And they take the money they raise from the golf tournament to do a special Christmas party for our children at Wolf, our special school Wolf. And I believe they raised over $3,000 this year. And they bought toys for every child and different things for every child at Wolf. And we went over there. I think some board members were in attendance. That was one of the most special moments you'll ever see, because Santa Claus came and the children were going up and Santa was giving them presents, and the joy in their faces and the joy among the men and women, and they were mostly men in the maintenance department, on their faces that they'd made a difference in a child's life. That was, my hat's off to the maintenance department for doing that. That's commendable. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Dr. Ellis, can I ask one question before we move on?
Certainly.
Just briefly concerning the accident yesterday, assuming this was a vehicle that's covered by the commercial carrier law of the state of North Carolina, I assume that the Highway Patrol is sending their commercial carrier investigators and reconstruction team down to take a look at this and assess the condition of the bus and the circumstances of the accident.
As a matter of fact, he was down today. I'm looking at Jared. I don't know that he's finished or not, but he is not finished. He's still working. But they sent someone down today to start.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure about that. Like I say, we operate a commercial fleet. I know that's pretty well standard practice, and that will address some questions apparently some folks had about this. Thank you.
That should put that to bed. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ellis. And we now have Mr. Karpinski front and center.
I forgot two
with,
things.
hold it. Have a senior moment.
This was on a
On my part.
Okay, all right. On a separate piece of paper. I would like to make the board aware that Union County Public Schools was recognized at the 9th Global Confucius Institute Conference in China as the 2014 Confucius Classroom of the Year Award recipient. There were only 5 recipients from over 800 Confucius schools. That included 1 from Great Britain, 1 from Austria, and 3 from the United States. Union County was the only public school system to be recognized. And that is quite a feat. We've had Confucius classrooms in our schools for probably 12, 15 years. It's been long going. Now we've got the Mandarin that we've started in our elementary schools. That was quite an honor. Dr. Clark flew, was it 48 hours to stay 24 to receive the award, and no, Union County Public Schools and taxpayers did not pay for that. The Confucius group paid for that. I also want to make you aware that the Learning Council recognized Union County Public Schools as the top suburban school district in the United States with regard to digital literacy. We were up with Houston Unified School District and some really heavy hitters. And we are a work in progress. We are nowhere near finished, but we've got a good start at it. And I want to make sure the board is aware of these two items. Thank you again. I won't say anything about it. I'm done.
Thank you very much. No insults for me at all.
No.
Mr. Karpinski, work a little closer to the mic now. I think we're ready to let you start with your budget preparation calendar.
Yes, sir, thank you. In your package, you have the budget preparation calendar for 15-16. This is required by general statutes. As you can see, there are various dates on this calendar, and there are key dates that we have to uphold per law. I guess starting backwards, the most key date is we have to have the budget proposal to the county commissioner by May 15th. So that's the most key date on this. But then, of course, there's many committee meetings in the process. Another goal that we'll have this year is to have the proposed budget request to the Board of Education on April 7th. So that gives you a month to look it over and make it your own, because at that point, it'll be the superintendent's budget proposal. And going back further, one of the concerns we have this year is we don't know what the state's going to do. Typically, mid-February, we get planning allotments from the state. And as you can see, the note on the bottom, right now, the state legislators have decided not to include ADM growth in their projections for next year. So being a growing school system, that is a concern of ours. So it's going to be hard for DPI to give us projections. I'll be going to an executive council meeting in January to see what DPI is saying about the budget for next year, but I'm concerned that we might get our numbers later than usual, and they're typically late anyways, and that's a real big concern of, I know it was the finance committee last year, a big concern of the committees that worked on it. With that stated, we'll be on target to get the budget to the county commission by May 15th, and this needs board approval.
Are there any questions? I was going to ask that. Are there any questions? You're welcome. If there are none, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the budget preparation calendar.
All those in favor of the budget preparation calendar the way it was presented, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Might I add that a copy of this be sent to the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners?
Absolutely, we'll share that with them.
We'll send it to the chairman of the county commissioners as well as the county manager. We'll get that out tomorrow.
I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure the chair and I talk on occasion and you want to see that.
Very good, thank you.
And we now have Dr. Webb and Dr. Jeffries with our strategic priority 3.
Good evening, board members. Dr. Webb and I will be bringing you an update on Strategic Priority 3. Strategic Priority 3 focuses on the district's commitment to providing safe, orderly, and caring schools which produce healthy and responsible students. The goal is to ensure a safe and secure school climate which promotes learning and positive character development for success in a global economy. There are 4 key strategies that guide our work in this area. We seek continuously for the alignment of human, financial, and community resources. We implement tactical site surveys on an annual basis at each school. We embed practices which lead to the development of responsible students, habits, and healthy bodies and lifestyles will be promoted. And lastly, the focus on design or modifications of facilities to provide for the safety and security of students and staff.
Good evening as well. Let's take a look at the first key strategy that Dr. Jeffries shared with you. It's really how do we align our human and financial capital with our community resources to support the implementation of programs there. And what I will do is just highlight on some of them. You have the presentation. But as you look through, we continue to work with our elementary levels in regards to replacing the DARE program. You remember back in 2011, due to the Sheriff's Department resources being cut and reduced, the DARE program was removed. And the Board of Education tasked us with developing a program that would basically complement the awareness. So we did that, and we have Lisa Callahan and Mr. Don Novak that go out and work with our elementary students in the 5th grade. They schedule time with the principal, and it's really been a tremendous program with our elementary schools. We also work at our high schools as we work through the drug and alcohol and psych classes. We've designated the 10-hour program for our students who have violated, whether that's at the middle school or high school, an infraction regarding alcohol or drugs. Speaking of that, let's take a look. This data does trail. It always trails by a year. So for the new board members, our experienced board members know that. If we look at the data for 2013 and 14 here, we had 168 infractions dealing with alcohol or drugs in our school system. Out of that 168, we have taken out 11 students minus withdrawn or excused. Withdrawn is pretty self-explanatory, but excused, that means they have attended a program that's comparable to ours and they have the documentation to support that. Once you back those 11 students out, we served 157 students in our program. Out of those 157 that we offered the program to, 154 have completed that, with one being rescheduled. That's a approximately 98.8% rate of attendance and completion of the program. And if you look here, though, the decrease, we still increased in students in regards to our ADM, but our number of infractions have decreased by almost 13%. But I can tell you the efforts have not decreased in our schools. Our SROs, our administrators, our teachers, and our students are actively involved in helping us monitor this area. And I think that's a key to continuing to decrease those number of incidents. Dr. Jeffrey spoke about the tactical survey. We work with our school resource officer, Mr. Jared McGraw, works with our school resource officers and the Sheriff's Department, as well as with the principal and maintenance department, to do a tactical assessment of each one of our facilities. How do we use that tactical assessment? We are looking at that information to make improvements when we do repairs and renovations, upgrades to our facilities, or even as we prepare for new construction at any point in time. We use that data to help us make improvements. Some of the things that that you see here, and we've talked about before as well, is that our SROs, our Monroe Police Department, our Sheriff's Office, our special response teams, either in the city or with the Sheriff's Office, as well as the 911 communication centers, have access to our closed circuit cameras.
Strategic priority 3, key strategy number 3, focuses on our practices to lead to the development of responsible student habits, which result in healthy bodies and healthy lifestyles. These curricular aspects are extremely robust, and they're offered at the elementary, middle, and high school levels. Union County was rewarded by an aggressive pursuit of a Carol M. White PEP grant of $1.5 million. That bolstered our offerings at these levels. These funds expired or sunset in 2013, but the design of the programming was such that it was sustainable beyond the life of the grant. So those programs are still viable options for all of our students. We do have a plan to pursue an additional grant the end of this month, 2015. When you look at the opportunities at elementary to purchase PE equipment, at middle school, offering group fitness classes, or at high school, implementation of our exercise science labs, it speaks to the comprehensiveness of this strategic priority and the focus for Union County.
To add to strategy 3, back in 2009, Dr. Ellis and I began to work with, at that time, Presbyterian Hospital to work towards providing certified athletic trainers at our schools at our athletic events. We had to start somewhere, and with Presbyterian, we started with baby steps. We were able to start with 2 certified athletic trainers, but part of the partnership that we developed with them was how do we add to all of our schools over a period of time and make this sustainable. And as you can see, we started in 2010, once we worked the details out, at Piedmont, Forest Hills, and Weddington. I will tell you, as you can see through 2013, we are fully implemented with a certified athletic trainer at all of our high schools. And they also work at special events within our communities as the schools have something going on that's involving the community. What I will tell you is that's a 7-year partnership once it was fully implemented. It was fully implemented in 2013 and 14, so we are in year 2 of that 7 years. That partnership was worth well over $6 million to the school system since it's been phased in, because at this time, Presbyterian's changed names to Novant. They pick up the salary, benefits, et cetera, for each and every one of those certified athletic trainers. Again, a very, very healthy partnership, and for those of you that have been at any of the games, it's just an added caution, and you know, especially in the days of concussions and emergency situations. Looking at key strategy 4, as schools will be designed or modified to provide for the safety and security of our students and staff. When we reworked this, initially the strategy said for students, well, we have to make sure we're taking care of our staffs and our community that are utilizing our facilities as well. Some of the things that we look at, we had to also look at our satellite sites. You know, the central service building, the tech service building, our maintenance facilities. When it comes to looking at security. One of the things we did is we add, as you can see, Informacast system. That enables us to, when we do warnings out to our schools, we now are able to do that same warning out to those satellite facilities as well. We talked briefly about our closed circuit camera access. For the audience and for the new members, at our elementary schools, we have 16 closed circuit cameras. At our middle schools, we have 32. And at our high schools, we have 48. Some of those are stationary, and some of those are the pan, tilt, and zoom type cameras to give different angles. We've also worked with the moving away from security associates at some of our satellite facilities, and then moved to armed security, and that is at Central Services. That's been there for a couple of years. They're certified through Sheriff Cathy. At our cosmetology building at Walter Bickett, because that's a night program, as well as at the old post office with all of our employees that are there as well. Some of the other things, Again, the camera access, we went into great detail later or in closed session. But those cameras have been used in conjunction with the alert training that went on at Walter Bickett Elementary that Sheriff Kathy has shared with you. Amazing training. What we also need to share with you is that that type of training has gone on at other schools. It's taken place at Porter Ridge High School. It's taken place at Sun Valley High School. And we continue, Jared McGraw continues to work with our local law enforcement agencies to continue to bring that training to Union County. Our SRO of the year, Monique Hoyt from the city schools, helped work with and was a liaison for us with the FBI and the alert program this year. With the North Carolina Critical Incident Response for school faculty and staff, that's a new process this year. It started back in 1996 with the critical response kits, but it was updated this year. We did training over the summer with our principals. Our teachers went through the training. Now, instead of where the old process was the first 20 minutes, well, the new guide really looks at hide, which is that lockdown within your room. It now addresses fight and it addresses run. So those are three options at which we train our principals and we train our teachers on. Again, it's moved from that the first 20 minutes to the new process that we are implementing this year. What do we continue to improve on? Just some updates. We've added the SROs at our middle schools. We are continuing to expand the HID, the host interface devices, the card readers, the security doors. We are probably within the next 2 to 4 weeks, we'll finish up phase 3. We've been in a design phase for the next series of the HID and vestibules, et cetera. We'll take that to the facilities committee in the near future and to the full board as that unfolds. Strategic fencing, as you know, these are target hardening strategies, strategic fencing to help redirect folks to designated areas. And part of that is to help where you have cameras, where you have vestibules, where you have HID doors and so forth. We have updated the gang prevention training. That was old information and old. If you ever viewed one of the DVDs, I believe it was from the 1970s, but all that information's been updated. We continue to work with and update bullying prevention information on an ongoing basis. And the bus radio upgrades, as you know, we shared with you, we're now working with the county. I'll bring back to the facilities committee. The county has presented a potential partnership with Union County, but I will need to get that information and logistics to the facilities committee so that they can review that and perhaps bring to the full Board of Education another solution. But what we discussed with the county was that we have to maintain the 5 nines, that 99.99% coverage across Union County when it comes to that radio coverage. And we must make sure that we can maintain stock on our shelves that we can unplug and plug in case a piece of hardware breaks, that we don't have a bus on the road without a working radio. So they are putting something together to bring back to us to review, and I will share that at our facilities committee on the 28th. And we have got ongoing training. Mr. McGraw and Mr. Novak continue to work with playground and after-school safety presentations. They work with the directors and those site supervisors. They are doing constant training with our maintenance and custodial personnel in regards to job safety, you know, the slip, trips, falls, et cetera. How do we prevent the accidents? Partnering with the Disability Rights and Resources, our ADA compliance. Remember, facility committee members, we talk about ADA, you having a plan means that you have to have those projects and that you're working to complete those projects. We have a tremendous relationship with the representative out of Charlotte, and that is really, really paying dividends. And, you know, we'll continue to refine, you know, our motto is what can we do different, better, and smarter when it comes to our training and for our employees. Continuing with some ongoing programs, we talked a little bit about the drug education and alcohol program that we put together. One of the things that we ran into was, what do we do with a student at the beginning or at the end of a semester, especially a high school student that may, be up for graduation? How do we run them through a 10-hour program if that incident happened the day before or the last day of school? And so, that was an opportunity to create. It was an opportunity to come up with a new program, and we do that in-house working with the principal and Ms. Callahan. Again, we bring in the SROs, guest speakers, and we've already spoken about the DARE program. And I will say this, that in our city schools, the DARE program is still there. So Chief Gilliard provides the resource for that, and we thank him for that as well. Please keep in mind that we have lost funding. The DARE program, as I shared with you from the county's perspective, we no longer, the True Grant went away at the state level, so we can't apply for that. But we have applied, and we were granted a mini grant from the Education Foundation, and we are very appreciative to the Ed Foundation for recognizing our needs. And we're putting that to work in translating our materials into some Spanish materials.
The professionals of our safety and security department are focused and dedicated daily on continuous improvement. They work to provide safety training and its application to daily routines to improve the professional skill set of all of our stakeholders. They also function as a depository, a thought partner for all involved to improve processes and proposals, to receive those and offer ideas which drive our course of action. They also serve as a sounding board where all entities, both our schools and departments, can turn to during times of need and crises. They work in a proactive sense to anticipate the needs of our stakeholders and develop innovative procedures, services, and measures which exceed their expectations. Dr. Webb and I thank you for this time, and will receive any questions that you may have.
Questions, board members?
I have a quick question. The athletic trainer program, does that apply to all high school sports, or is that just football?
They work at all the events. So they work with the principal in their schedule, Mr. Sides, if they may come in at 12 o'clock that day because they have an event till 8 o'clock. They're there on the weekends for tournaments, etc.
Well, I guess what I meant is all sports. It's not just football.
That is correct.
And we need to I want to be very clear that the president of Novant Matthews, Mr. Roland Bebo, he's a resident of Union County, but he serves in the capacity at Novant, has been a tremendous partner. He was a champion for this with our children. We tried to get various entities to partner with us to get this done. He was the only one to come to the table and said over 3 years they would fully fund it. We're also partnering with them with some telenursing, some telemedicine, that kind of thing. So they are innovative thought partners with us. And I think we need to recognize that Novant has gone above and beyond the call of duty to partner with us.
I agree, and I'd like to add, Mr. Sides, my son was part of the concussion protocol, playing soccer, had an athletic trainer on the field, identified it immediately, and it really, it was great to behold as a parent.
Yeah, you have to watch out for those non-contact sports. Right?
Tell me about it.
Dr. Jeffries, one question.
Yes, sir.
In key strategy number 3, you indicate that UCPS will reapply for a $2.2 million grant in this year. Is the funding to be used to expand the current sustainable programs or to add new programs, or both?
Both will be explored. As I shared, the original design of the grant, the offerings we have now are sustainable.
Right.
And as we look to expand upon those offerings for all stakeholders.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be remiss if I did not take the time to thank our teachers, our administrators, our support staff, our law enforcement, whether that's our city or our sheriffs, our fire, our EMT, everyone that pitches in every day to make sure that our children are safe as they come to school and as they go home. we know that we do our best to try to prevent a catastrophic situation, but we can't ever guarantee that. But we want to try to have steps in place to minimize what we can. So again, I want to thank all those individuals who work tirelessly every day.
And is that all from the board? Questions, comments? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Dr. Ellis, you have center stage with the 13-14 A through F grading.
I have mentioned this to board members for either the past 2 or 3 meetings in the superintendent's report, and I wanted to make sure we go over the nuts and bolts with you at this point in time. And I've asked Carolyn White and John Jones to assist. The students last year in May or June, excuse me, or it could be May depending on the test, took our EOGs and EOCs, okay? And that data was reviewed and released, I believe, in September by the State Board of Education. And at the October board meeting, we presented it Strategic Priority 1 to the board members and included those test scores. The General Assembly last year determined that they would grade the schools. Now, the data they are using is the same data that we reviewed in October. It is not new data. Nothing has changed. It's the same scores the state pushed out. I want to make sure everybody understands that, because that's a big piece. It's a key piece to this. And what the General Assembly determined was that they were going to come up with a formula that they were going to rate schools A through F. And I wanted to make sure that you guys have a preview. Now, we do not know. Carolyn has not been told on her secure shell who's an A, who's an F. We do not know that. We have some pretty good estimations, however, and what Carolyn did was she looked at worst case scenario, okay? We know this is as bad as it can be, but we're hoping it's going to be better. But we want to talk to you about the scores that were released in September by the state board that we shared with parents, or that went public then, but we shared at the October board meeting. So Carolyn, I will let you talk about that, if you would, please.
Okay. Everybody has a copy of what you can't read it up there, but if you look at this, what you see in the first column is talking about the ready status, because we call our testing program ready EOGs, ready EOCs. So if you look at the first column, it gives you the performance composite CCR. Well, CCR is talking about college and career ready, and that refers to the students who scored only 4s and 5s. They say they're college and career ready. And then you look at performance composite, which is GLP. That is the grade level proficiency. That's when we went from, we used to just have 4 achievement levels. Now we have 5. And so with this is the 3, 4s, and 5s. And with the school performance that you'll be getting the grades in February, they're using the GLP. They're using the grade level performance scores. So that's what they're looking at. On this sheet, you also see the growth status. And the growth status, which Dr. Ellis said earlier, I think was 20% of school performance. Did you mention that?
No,
Yeah.
no, go ahead. I was
School
going to,
grade.
but go ahead.
Okay. Well, anyway, that's for school growth. And school growth looks at every individual student. And so I look at myself and it has a prediction. I'm supposed to go from this point to this point. So it takes every student individually to see if they made their growth or not. So you might see a school with a very high percent on grade level, but they may not have made growth for all of their students. Doesn't mean most of their students didn't make it, but not enough made it that they're positive. So that's where you exceeded it above beyond what they predicted you to do, or you just met what they predicted you to do, or you did not meet what they had predicted the students to do. So that's where that comes from. The AMO is the annual measurable objective status. And that's where you have your subgroups, because every subgroup has the standards to meet, and it's extremely hard for some of the subgroups. And I just wrote the numbers at the bottom, but some people had as few as 17 subgroups to meet, and some had as many as 78 to meet. And there's a big difference whether I have to meet 17 targets or you have to meet 78. So you can see that some schools met all of their targets and some did not. But you know, anytime you've got 78 targets or you've got 30 targets, it's really hard to meet all of them. So this is one of the things that we talked about. And For those of you who are new, all of those targets go up this year. They go up every year, and they go up considerably. So it'll be even harder this year to meet the targets that schools have. But at the very bottom, you can see that we had 94.1% that did meet their targets.
And I think, Carolyn, if I remember correctly, that was one of the top numbers in the state. If it wasn't the top,
Yes.
I don't, but.
Right. If
Yeah,
you look
they
at the
did
next one, we just kind of did a little thing that compared us to the state. And if you looked at exceeds expected growth and meets expected growth, the state, that's 74.7. And for us, that was 88.2. And then we always compare ourselves to the 10 largest school districts. And so you can see that Union County had 94.1. And you can see the other large school districts. And then the percent proficient for career and college ready, which is the ones that scores 4 and 5, and the percent proficient for the grade level proficiency. And we have the highest percent on grade level for both of those for the 10 largest schools districts.
One thing you need to know is that when the legislature's formula, it's 80-20. Superintendents ask for it to be 50-50. And the reason for that was a child who's a level 1, if they make a year's growth, they're not going to be at a level 3 or a level 4. So the children who, whatever reason, struggle, they can make their growth, but their school is not going to look good if they're not at a level 3 or 4 or 5. Superintendents asked for 50-50. We were appreciative that it was 80-20 because when it started out, there was no growth involved. It was just the 100%, the test scores. And so 80-20 is a start, but we would hope they would put more attention to the growth of the individual student. And the formula is on a 15-point scale. So any school that scores from 85 to 100 will be an A school. Any school that scores from 70 to 84 will be a B, and then go 15 points down, and you can see what the numbers there. Now, if I made my growth, I'm going to get some points in that 20%. That will help me. If I exceeded my growth, it's really going to help me because it's going to add more points. But if I did not make my growth, I may be pretty much dead in the water. Let's talk about Rayview. Rayview is a very high scoring school. They did not make expected growth. But because of the numbers of children who are on grade level, they're probably going to be a higher scoring school. Okay? Let's look at East Elementary. East Elementary met their growth status, but with only 31% of the children on grade level. When you do the math on that, that's going to be a real low score. Now, we don't know. We have no idea. Nobody will tell us what the exact magical configuration is in the 80-20. But Carolyn has looked at worst case scenario, correct?
Correct. Because I think I know, if you just met growth, that you will not make lower than a 70 for growth, but growth is only 20%. So when I calculated if you met it, I calculated it on 70. But it'll be somewhere in between, probably figured on an index sort of thing, which we have not seen. So I figured at the lowest possible score to see where I thought we would be. I'd rather be happily surprised and
nothing has changed with these test results since they were issued or confirmed in September. The change has been the legislature has decided they're going to apply the A through F grading. I think it will be demoralizing for some schools. The higher the poverty, I think you're going to see the lower grades because if a child makes expected growth with a middle level 1, they could still be a level 1 with expected growth. They could make more than a year's growth and still be a low level 2 with developmental scale scores points. So it is going to be, I think when the dust settles, it's like I told the board when we changed over to Common Core, when the dust settles, I think we're going to be we were top of the heap. I think we're going to be the top of the heap here statewide, but that does not allay my thought process for my individual school. And I wanted to make sure you folks had every bit of information in the sunlight that we have. Now, one other thing that's very important, and it's it's either good or bad. You can determine. It's the double-edged Damocles sword as far as I'm concerned. Elementary, and you can go on to the next slide. Elementary is only tested in middle school on EOG math, reading, science, and in middle school, math 1 or English 1 or biology, not English, it's English 2, biology. So they're one-shot wonders in elementary. I've got 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade reading, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade math, and I've got 5th grade science, and that's it for me. Right, K1 and 2 is not going to count in that part of it. If I'm in middle school, I've got 6, 7, 8 math, 6, 7, 8 reading, 8 science, and if I've got a bio 1 or if I've got a math 1, that's what counts. Now, you say, oh, that's you've only got those few things to count. Well, then let's go over and look at high schools. High schools, bless their hearts, you look at math 1, English 2, biology, we look at our ACT scores, our math course rigor, and that means how many kids did a math completer. That means algebra 2 or math 2 now. Is it 3 now? It used to be algebra 2, but math 3. Our ACT work keys, and that's for the career and technical education students. That's sort of like their final exams. And our graduation rate. So high schools don't just have to worry about the courses. They have all these other balls they've got to juggle. So I've heard some elementary and middle folks say, man, I wish I had more. And I've heard some high schools say, dear goodness, look at all we've got. What if we had less? So those are all the things
That explains the high school part.
Yeah, it's all the things the state is going to look at. And it's not new data. It's the same thing we've been looking at. The state is just going, not the state, the legislature has commanded that a grade be assigned to each school. What have I left out, Carolyn and John?
I think that did it. I just wanted to make sure they looked at that because that explains the math, that explains the work keys, what you have to do.
And we've changed math from algebra 1, algebra 2, discrete, all these things to math 1, 2, and 3 that employ some of this and some of that. Questions, board members?
When do you expect, or when do you promise to have these actual grades in your hand or notified?
We understand that the state board is going to certify them at their February meeting. And that's like the first Thursday or Wednesday of the month. I don't know the date.
They'll release it to the state board, and when they approve it, then you will get it like immediately.
We always send out to board members something like that. As soon as we get it, we'll send out an email with what's been approved.
Because it's embargoed until they do that, and at that point, we send out the email.
And principals will send out the school report cards.
School report cards, they will send those out too, yes.
So parents will receive notification of the school report card, and it'll be on there.
Because that has a lot with it.
Would we have access to know all the other school systems in the state at the same time? How we stand up? Do you think?
You probably won't see it right then. It will be posted by DPI, but you may not see it because we'll get our individual stuff out right then.
Yeah.
But the state gets it out pretty quickly. Probably it might be that day or the next day because the paper would have it in there compared to systems, I'm sure.
I'd be willing to bet you'll be getting a lot of phone calls the next day. Principals will as well.
We've talked with principals, met with them, and told them to talk with their site-based teams, to talk with their PTOs, to send something home with report cards, to let parents know this is not a secret. These scores have been public since September. To let everybody know we're not trying to hide anything. It's just something that the General Assembly, that Senate led, decided we were going to do, and we're complying with the letter of the law. Now, I will say that at schools that did not make their growth, we've done curriculum audits at that school. John, would you like to talk about that?
Correct. We've gone in and improvement plans from the principals and improvement plans at the school base have been provided. We had a curriculum audit, which simply was to go into support. And now we're working on midterm reviews for those schools to see that we're offering them the resources they need for improvement.
Some schools have had new principals assigned to them. So we're doing everything we know. We're meeting with principals, and I've told them, please let your stakeholders know what you think your score is going to be. This should not be a surprise to your stakeholders because we've told them what we believe for them worst case scenario to be, and we've only our score to be.
Do you feel like the next step in this is going to be that the state's going to come back or DPI is going to say, okay, we need to have some kind of improvement plan for all the schools that get a below a C or get an F or something like that. That's going to be the next step in this deal. Is they're going to ask for some kind of action plan for the ones that don't make the grade?
I have no idea, but we already have set up that internally.
Great.
Before any of this came about, schools that don't make growth, we talk with them, we revisit, we look at, sometimes new principals are placed. So that has been ongoing with us anyway, but we're never going to be perfect. My only hope is that we can improve. And I will tell you some tremendous improvements I believe have been made at East Elementary under Mr. Denny Ferguson. We've done some lots of different things. And somebody said to me, I don't talk much about curriculum during my superintendent's report. No, that's what I live during the week with principals and meeting with different groups and different plans and programs. And, we've got a plan for everything that'll sit still.
But
And the points, like right now it's a 15-point scale. That may very well change for next year, maybe a 10-point scale.
We don't know. It started out as a 10-point scale, and superintendents we asked for it to be 15-point, and I think the state board did also. And for this year it's a 15-point scale. They may modify it. I do not know, Mr. Size. My guess is it won't stay the same.
But they won't. You won't have the testing until the end of grade or end of curriculum for this year.
Right.
So whatever grade, we're kind of stuck with it till maybe as this time 2016.
Right. It was initially supposed to be released in October, and October's right before November, and I find it curious it was put off until February. But that's just my personal thought.
Might I bring something up here in this context? I've talked to Ms. Boyd. She brought up to me our legislative agenda. Our legislative agenda is through the North Carolina School Boards Association. And this, one of these items is on that. While we don't always benefit from the legislative agenda, Ms. Boyd saw an opportunity to maybe craft our own legislative agenda. And I thought about it a little, and I decided she may be right, and I thought we'd open it up to the rest of the board to maybe propose your interest in having a work session, possibly the last week of this month. And you have a few days to get back to me so we can know to discuss the possibility of having a legislative liaison from our schools go up to Raleigh and talk to our legislators on their home court. And this would be one of the things I think maybe we would focus on, the A through F system. If you board members are interested in that, please let one of us know, maybe by Thursday or Friday this week. And I know I'm springing it on you and you don't have a lot of thought process here. That's why I'm giving you a little time. Get back, let us know so that we can arrange a work session for all of us to talk about this and decide how we would present it and who might go from here to body. So I don't expect too much comment on. Just let it set in and get back to me on that, or get back to Ms. Boyd on that. She and I will be in contact with each other about this. Ms. Boyd, do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, I just want to say that I know that it seems like it's quick, but we all know they're going back into session, and it's important to get on the calendars, get together. And then when you're thinking legislative agenda, don't automatically think about things that cost money. There's the calendar issue, there's A through F. Public schools, but a lot of the schools in North Carolina. And I think it's important that we go to Raleigh and talk their home court and say, this is what we need. We haven't asked, and it's time for us to collectively get together. And I've committed to leading that charge, even though it's kind of quick, but time's running out. So thank you for your support.
Do you have a time in mind or day in mind of when you'd like to make that trip?
Decided in a work session.
But until the end of January to meet, it may be a little late to get on. I'd like to see least reach out to the representatives and see what their schedules are like, even if we can get on, for the middle of February.
And that might be preemptive on your part, yes.
But you
For
also
you to
need
do
to
that.
remember, you need to look at who represents us and who's on the education committees.
That's right.
And who has the pool, because it's kind of a moot point to to go speak with, represent ABC, who has nothing to do with education and has no clue as to what we're doing.
Right, that's why we're talking to you. We know that Craig Horn is on that committee because he was part of the A through F. So he's our first stop. And we've talked about it.
I think it'd be a good idea that anybody that can go.
Well, and I think we can decide that if we have a work session, because I would like to have us all agree on an agenda to take forward there.
So are you asking for dates right now?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Not at all. If we notify 48 hours in the head, we're in compliance with law. I just want to see if there's an interest in it, and that will be individual phone calls or an email to one of us and just said, I'm interested in this. I think currently we talked about the earliest we could probably do it is the last week in January, which would be 28th, 29th, 30th range. So keep that in mind and talk to Ms. Boyd or talk to myself, and she and I will compare notes. Thank you. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I just wanted to make sure that you guys were in full knowledge and full possession, and anybody that's in full knowledge.
I have a question about as far as with the AMO and the subgroups. I know you discussed about what, as far as, the game plan with the schools, so is that basically touching the game plan with the subgroups as well and closing that achievement gap? Because, when you look at it, you've got out of 31 elementary schools, 11 didn't meet. Out of 9 middle, 6 out of 9 middle schools, 6 didn't meet. 12 high schools, 8 didn't meet.
You're looking at the schools that did not meet all of their.
In the subgroups, in the AMO.
Yes. Well, and some of those you're talking about, like in the high schools, there's some of the ones that had, Sun Valley is one of those that has 78, because, you've got them, first you have them for testing 95% in whatever they consider reading. Then you have for testing 95% math, and then you've got it for anybody that you have at least 30 people. So, that's white students, black students, Hispanic, multiracial, American Indian, free and reduced lunch, EC.
Yeah, so we always, exactly, and across the board, we always know that it's any minority group that's typically falling into that category the majority of the time. I guess that's,
In the school improvement plans that all of you read and approved, we put in strategies and we changed them as needed at year for year. And schools do come up with a plan for closing the gap.
Right.
We talk about that. They enact the plan, and I believe those are embedded in their school improvement plan.
They're supposed to be anything they did not meet.
Right, anything they didn't meet. So we do work with schools to.
VIVAS data.
I'm sorry.
Use of VIVAS data.
VIVAS.
Okay.
And see, sometimes when they don't meet it, it might be they barely have the 30 students in the subgroup. They'll say to me, well, how do we know? Well, sometimes it's a changing figure for you because the student's moving in and out or going on free or reduced lunch. So, the thing is you want to target every student, no matter what. But sometimes there's just somebody slips through. In fact, I'll tell you, not 13, 14, but 12, 13, one of our middle schools didn't meet it in 2 categories because they had one student, theirs ended up being a 95% tested that made them fall out of it. They missed it in 2 categories. One student ended up being a multiracial student who was also an LAP student. And of their kids, but that one didn't test, and because of that, they didn't meet their AMOs. So there's some things in there tricky, but we got strategies and try to get everybody tested.
Thank you. If I hear no objections, I'll move to item 15, resolution on driver's education. Dr. Ellis, Ms. Morris.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. Back in your November meeting, you asked that I provide a resolution on driver's education funding, and I have worked with the North Carolina School Boards Association. I'd like to thank Leanne Winter for drafting this for us, and so I present that here for your review.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve.
I have a motion to approve.
Quick question.
Can I have a second first?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought somebody did.
You got a second? Question, sir?
Approximately, Dr. Ellis, the amount of funding that will go away under the driver ed program if budget stays the same?
This year, we received $722,000. And we are allowed by statute to charge $55, or we have been. We're going to bring that up in the next item about raising that. And we are working on a solution for all of the classwork, Mr. Sides, to be online. I don't find that to be optimum, but I think that would be a tremendous cost cutting or savings. But it was around 700, a little over 700. 722, did you say?
722 was the allocation from the state last year.
They provide us for the number of ninth graders, and it averages out to be about $191 per ninth grader.
The 722 is the cost. How much do we raise through our fees? So in other words, how much is the net cost to us for this program?
I think the 722 is what the state gave us, and that doesn't include the fees.
We get to keep the fees.
Well, it costs us more. The 722 balances out with the fees.
So with our fees last year, $139,000 that we were able to add to that.
To that 722.
Gotcha.
And that was at $55 a student at that point.
At 55, yes. And we made the change in October, so you did have a few 45s in the beginning. Majority was $55.
Right.
It's some small roll.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff. Let's move to 16, driver's education. Dr. Jones.
I'd like to say good evening to our
Dr. Little.
Board of Education members this evening. If I can just start by saying, I always admire Dr. Ellis that she gets to say that Union County is her home, and when she's in the Piedmont area, how she says she's at home. I get to say that tonight, but because before there was Sandy Ridge Elementary School, this was Helms Farm, and this was my grandmother and grandfather's home place, and the chimneys up on the hill were the chimneys of the farmhouse. And I came back to this property growing up to play at Cowhorn Branch. I came back to play with my cousins in the woods and adventures, but I never thought I would come back to do a driver education presentation. But so I get to say tonight that it's good to be on homeland. But I do want to discuss driver's education. During the November Board of Education meeting at Walter Bickett, we provided you information regarding the funding of our driver's education program for the current year. During this presentation, we alerted the board that there is a significant change in driver education funding from the state level. The General Assembly now states that starting with the 2015-16 school year, and that will be from July 1st forward, the driver education program administered by DPI shall no longer be paid out of the highway fund based on annual appropriations by the General Assembly. And this states that the local boards of education will use funding available. However, they don't define what those funds are, where they will come from. In the past, as I shared a minute ago, our state allocation has roughly been $722,715, which is about $191 for each ninth grader. Now remember, we're allocated for all ninth graders. Not all ninth graders do take driver's education. There are some students that take it later. There are some that wait until they're 18 and they get their license and they don't take the driver's ed. And also in that allocation, we have to support private school students in the county, charter schools, homeschool students. So we certainly do work with students beyond the enrollment of Union County with that. Senate Bill 744 further stated that local boards of education shall fund driver education from funding available to them and may charge each student participating in a driver education course a fee up to $65 to offset the cost of providing training and instruction. As stated earlier, in October 2013, the Board of Education approved an increase in student charge from $45 to $55. That was the state cap. The new legislation with Senate Bill 744 states that the cap can extend to $65 from our current charge of $55. So based upon our participation with this raise, the raise in the amount with probably $10, we probably see an increase across the board of around $25,000, $25,000 this $10,000 will bring. So this still will not cover the total cost of what it's going to take to provide driver education for each student, and a deficit will exist. Dr. Ellis has mentioned that we're trying to be very creative in our approach. We're looking at the online instruction for the classroom, which I believe has to be 30 hours, and seeing how we can do that and maybe cut the cost of what would take for instructors at that area and work with it online. We also have done some research regarding some of the private vendors out there. We haven't done any kind of bidding or even looked at that, but even saying, hey, what would the charge be? We're getting some figures from one company. They said maybe $175 for behind the wheel, which must be 30 hours as well for a student. And if you added that, we have quotes for anywhere from $20 to $50 for the classroom instruction, but we can do that online, we feel. So you're still looking at that cost of $200 or above right now. So these are the considerations we'll be making, and we'll be working with the curriculum committee, the newly formed curriculum committee. We will be working, who will then share with the general board how we're going to address these concerns and look at sustaining what we can in our program for the upcoming year. However, the increase of $10 per child to the state cap of $65 will be beneficial in addressing this funding gap. Now, we bring this to you tonight as our program of studies for high school, which is our next agenda item, has to be approved tonight. So we want to make sure these figures that we present to the parents in our program of studies is correct. So that's why we bring that to you this evening.
Discussion? Do I have a motion? Motion to approve. Thank you, Ms. Savage. Would somebody second that? Second it. Thank you, Ms. Merrill. Any discussion at all? Any questions at all?
Does the ceiling on the amount the state will allow us to charge the parents, is that graduated like next year? Is there a new cap? Do we know going forward?
Well, the 65 is all we know at this time. Right. And of course, this would begin with July 1 forward, because we're still under the 55 this current year that's in our program of studies.
We are taking Dr. Little oversees our virtual learning program, and we're already working on the development of an online class that one person could oversee, and not like one teacher for every 30 kids to try to compact this. I don't know that I think it's optimum, but I think it's doable to try to, because there's no way we can not do anything and then July 1 be scrambling. So we're trying to work on an online module. We're working on that now, and if that's the way it rolls, we'll have that prepared and ready to go. We hope July 1.
At this point, it's another unfunded mandate that we have to find a way to work around it.
Mr. Chair, that was a point I wanted to make, especially if we have folks that approach the legislature. We need to cap of $65. Function. I've spoken to many of our and some folks in this. I think it's very important that we turn up the heat on the legislature to address this.
So I think we're going to end up with a work session. I'm clairvoyant. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the increase following some of the other protocol Dr. Jones outlined. Raise your hand and say aye.
Thank you very much.
Reluctantly, yes. Oh, was there anyone opposed? I'm sorry, I didn't ask. We're good. Dr. Little, it looks like, high school.
And I'm going to
program of
introduce and say that, Dr. Little, this is the time of the year that we bring our high school program of studies for your approval. We are fortunate to have the leadership of Wanda Little in this area. She has begun working on this early in the fall. The number of courses and offerings that we provide to our students, a lot of that is attributed to our principals, our leaders, and her leadership. And Dr. Little, I appreciate all you've done in preparing this.
This is my third or fourth dissertation. I'm not sure where it falls in there. And it's already out of date because you all just made a change in it. So I appreciate that, and I'll go back tomorrow and fix it if you should happen to approve it for tonight. It was, I'm sure, one of the most riveting pieces of reading that you found in your packet. And if you read it all the way through, you may be one of the first ones in years that read everything in there. Parts of it stay pretty much the same from year to year. English 1, 2, 3, 4. They just don't change. But there are many things that are added or tweaked. We may put in an honors level course. We may put in a new course totally different. We may take out some courses which had not been used in years past. The beginning of the book, you, I'm sure, noticed, has more rules, regulations, that the fact that students are put into future core ready or they're put into OCS. What are the requirements for them to graduate? And those requirements go along with the book. So when a rising ninth grader comes into high school, our goal is to give him a printed copy of the program of studies to carry through high school with him, because those graduation requirements, so far, DPI has been kind enough to let stand for 4 years. It's much like the GPA requirement that you're aware of is about to roll over for the rising ninth graders, but it's not in effect for 10, 11, and 12. This includes that new GPA count so that the rising ninth will know what's for them. 10, 11, 12 know what was for them was in last year's book or the book before. Whatever they started ninth grade with is the one they finish high school with. So that's why we only hand out printed copies to rising ninth graders. However, all courses that are found in here are available for any high school student. So just because it says something in this book that it did not say 3 years ago does not mean a senior can't take that course. We just have to improve our facilities and give more and raise those academy numbers and all that CTE stuff that keeps coming down from DPI. Do you have questions about the book itself that I could answer? There will be possibly one change that I understand State Board may vote on this week, if not in the very soon future, where our 10-point scale, which is in here for ninth grade only, will be across the board 9, 12. In that case, I'll change the print. When DPI does something, and I can change the print before Mr. Rogers is kind enough to go send it to Staples, it does make a change. If I can't, then I make it online, but not in the printed copy of the book, because once we've pushed that button with Staples, we've pushed that button with Staples. And if there should be anything else that you would want to have changed, we'll come back with an amended version. We try not to do that to you. We hope to do this only once a year, but we have been back for amendments.
I have a question, and it could be, I read a lot of it, but with the, and I had a parent ask me that they have to successfully complete one online academic course. That's just.
That is with the rising ninth grade next year.
Right.
My not my great grandson, good Lord. My step grandson is in the 8th grade, and his class will have to complete one online course somewhere.
And just somewhere.
Yes,
anywhere.
ma'am.
Just
yes, ma'am. As the e-learning person, I will tell you that we have created several courses. And if I were going to make a suggestion to someone, I would say like Success 2.0, Leadership. We have several courses that are online and excellent ones, and they're not, even though we offer AP Environmental is not for everyone. That may be the course that some children take, but some children who don't think they could do AP Environmental, we have other courses too. So yes, we have several that will fit that need.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Take care of that. We'll cross that. Do I have a motion to approve the high school program course of study? I have Ms. Savage.
Second.
And a second, Ms. Helms. Thank you. Any other questions? Any other comments? All those in favor of approving the high school program course of study the way it's presented, please raise your hand and say aye. Aye. All those opposed? We're unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And now I have to beg forgiveness. Remember back when we approved the agenda and I asked us to change from action to informational, the alternative accountability model?
Change it back to action.
Let's change it back to action.
Let's cover all bases.
Okay? It was originally correct.
Move to amend the agenda as stated, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? On general principles? We're good. Oh, yes. I have several. And now we ask for Ms. White to step forward. Thank you.
Do you want to start? Me, just go ahead.
Go ahead.
The alternative school has always had an accountability model that didn't make a whole lot of sense because they followed a model just like all the traditional schools. So they have never been able to meet their accountability model. So in December, the state board came options for alternative schools, and also Wolf School would fall under this policy. In the past, Wolf really has not had enough students that we just didn't have a category for. So about the accountability model, and we have some options, and I have to send this into Raleigh telling them what we decided on. They had 4 options on here, and one was basically what we've done in the past, which was not a good model at all. One is where all the data from South Providence would be sent back to the home school. So all their test scores would go back to the home school. We could create a model ourselves that would have to be approved by the state board, or we could go with this option C. And option C is what we would like to do. And Mr. Ross, the principal at South Providence, had talked to me when this first got proposed. We talked about it probably in October, that this is a model he'd like to see us to go with. And with this one, it's a progress model. So the school can either maintain where they're at, or they can decline from where they're at, or they can improve. They can be a progressing school. So if you look at this, you can see that 20% of their model would be on student persistence. And what that means is keep the student in school for the year, either at the alternative school or back in one of the regular schools. So that would be 20% of it. 20% is the achievement, just like it is for all the other schools. It's all the EOGs and the EOCs and the work keys and graduation and math course rigor. And then it says, and it had the B under there, 3 years of data will be used. So they're going to not use just 1 year data, they'll use 3 years of data for that. And then 60%, which I think is a fair because that's growth, and we should be able to make growth with our students. So 60% of it would be calculated on growth for the students that they have at the alternative schools. Now at the Wolf School, their students in 10th grade and 11th grade take, and even third through 8, take what we call an Extend 1, but they don't have more than 2 or 3 in each of those grade levels. So they don't have large numbers. So they would also use this model. So with it, you would come out with, yes, we're progressing, we're getting better after this 3 year and using the average like they do. We're maintaining, we're staying right where we are, or we are declining and we're not doing as well as we have in the past. And that is the model that we would like to go with.
I would ask that you remember that the population at South Providence is a very fragile population, and it's a special population. These children come and they go depending upon the circumstance that took them there. And some of these children, we have to worry about a whole lot more than test scores with, due to the fragility of the life circumstances they encounter. And that would be part of the reason too that we're asking for this model.
And I would ask for questions, but I'd prefer to ask for a motion first. Motion to approve from Mr. Guzman, And second, from Marcia Savage. And does anybody have any comment to make? Any questions to ask about it?
How, in your opinion, how different would something that we crafted versus option C, how much different would you make it if we have that option?
I think Mr. Ross likes the option we're going with, because the 60%, it mirrors what growth is in a school anyway, as opposed to some higher number. But I've had conversation with him, but you've had it since I have.
I have to. And because he feels like with this, he can actually show you what they're doing. If we try to develop our own model, then we've got to go in there. Like right now, what they do is they look at test scores, and then they had to come up with 3 optional things. And it's hard to find things that you can really work on. So they usually would use something like, we're going to get more businesses to partner with us. Well, there are only so many businesses in Waxhaw or around that are going to partner with South Providence as hard as they work on it. They do things like trying to get the discipline better. Well, we're all working on that, but it doesn't always work the way we want it to. So it's very hard to come up with things that actually fit the school. But with this, you got 60% on working with those kids and showing growth. You really got a chance with that one. And so that's why they felt like, that gives them a fair shot. They're still standing on their own. And he felt good about it. And Mr. Howard at the middle school now feels good about it. It's probably the fairest model I've ever seen for an alternative school.
We good? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Ms. White. And now Ms. French takes center stage by herself. Thank you.
As you know, Dr. Clark can't be with us tonight, so I hope I can do him justice. He's put in a lot of work on this proposal, so I hope I can do him justice on this tonight. You have a memo in your packet that gives you the details on why we're coming up with this proposal. I'm going to give you some background on that as well, and you probably will have questions about this, and I'll be glad to try and answer those. I'm presenting to you tonight Union County Public Schools proposal for providing differentiated pay for classroom teachers. The background on this, why we're here, a section in the law included in the 2014 Appropriations Act approved by the General Assembly required LEAs to submit proposals for providing differentiated pay for their classroom teachers. The act doesn't give us a lot of information, but it did say that the proposals from each LEA should be submitted to certain committees of the General Assembly by January 15, 2015. They stated that the proposals for this differentiated pay did not have to include, but could include for classroom teachers rated include differentiated bonuses for classroom teachers, for example, for bonuses for like hard to staff area schools, additional so these parts, but did not specify that we felt opportunity to come forth and tell them what could schools. Before we jumped into making any kind of plan from within, if we have our teacher to a group of teachers and administrators, teacher administrator leaders with the district, an ad hoc committee that we pulled together. It included the current teacher of the year and current principal of the year, and just gave them some background on why are we doing this? What's the mandate from the General Assembly? What are we putting together? And then really broke down from them, tell us what this should look like, what could work for Union County Public Schools. It was a very, very good meeting. We were all united principals, teachers, in that if we need to do a proposal for what a differentiated pay plan could look like for Union County, we want it to be something that's going to be positive, that's going to be collaborative, and that's going to honor the PLC process that we've worked so hard as a district to put into place. So they were very clear that they did not want to create a proposal for differentiated pay for Union County Public Schools that gave salary increases for teachers based on how they scored on their performance evaluation or based on what an individual teacher student scored. They wanted something that was more of a reward as we work together, or a reward for something that extra that the teacher is doing. So coming out of that first ad hoc committee, there were two major points that they wanted to see in a plan. The first, they wanted to see in our proposal a plan for allowing teachers to receive bonuses when their entire school demonstrated certain levels of growth. Some of you may remember the old ABC model where there were, based on growth of the school, teachers, regardless of whether they be a music teacher or a math teacher or language arts, based on growth, would receive certain increases. So it was kind of a work together approach. We're all in this, regardless of our content area. We make a difference in the performance of our students. So that was one thing they wanted to see. The second part is they liked the idea of awarding bonuses for teachers who serve in high priority schools, who serve in leadership positions, who serve in hard to fill content areas. Those were three things that were important to them. We took those two main ideas, and like I said, it was a very positive discussion. We all were on the same page of, geez, if we've got to do this, let's make it fit Union County Public Schools. The next thing we did is gather our professional advisory committee together, and that's a group that's comprised of a teacher representative from each school in the district. And we came to them and did the same thing. We presented, hey, here's what our mandate is. We've got to put together this proposal. Here's what our initial group said. Give us your feedback. And here's what their feedback was. It was, we love this. We love these two ideas. We're in support of that. We also agree that we don't want a plan that pits teacher against teacher. You scored higher on the evaluation than I did, because they felt like that would erode our PLCs. But what they wanted to know is, I like these ideas, but how are we going to measure growth, for these schools? When you say bonuses for leadership positions, what are those bonuses? What is a leadership position? What are these things going to be? And what we kept coming back to in this is, look, we were told by the General Assembly that we needed to come up with a proposal for how this could work for Union County Public Schools, and we're going to do that. But they haven't given us a mandate at this point of, you must do this, and they haven't told us how it would be funded. We know that there has been some money put aside in the North Carolina Education Endowment Fund, I think, but we don't know how that, or if that is actually going to come to us. So what we didn't want to do is put ourselves in a corner, nail everything down and say, this is what we are going to do, but we don't know the parameters that we're going to be given. What we wanted to say was, what could work in Union County? What's going to be a buy-in for everybody? And so they approved at the end of the meeting, they approved the same 2 points that came out of our original committee. One, to create a plan that would award teachers, classroom teachers of a school, and give them bonuses for the growth of their students in that school. And two, coming up with a bonus system for teachers who serve in high priority schools, for teachers that take on leadership positions, and teachers who would feel hard to fill content areas. Following the PAC meeting, which was also very positive, and it was a spirited discussion. We had a lot of input from all parties. But after that meeting, we did receive word from the Union County Association of Educators. Their executive committee also met and approved the plan, and we're on board with that, which was important to us as well. So we have a lot of questions about what is really going to happen with this. We don't have a mandate right now to do a plan. We have a mandate to create a proposal and to submit that, and so we're going to do that. But again, on the specifics, we did not get too specific because we just don't know what they're going to come back and tell us to do. Just to make you aware, in case you hear this, there are some districts, and we heard this in some of our meetings with other LEAs, that some districts decided not to, or voted not to submit a proposal. Certainly we we do what is moral, we do what is legal, and we do what is ethical, and we read the law, and we said, hey, it's asking us to submit a proposal, and if we're asked to do that, we're going to do it. And also, we felt that, we could, if there is going to be something funded and it gives us an opportunity to award our teachers, if that comes to fruition, then we want to have a plan in place where we're going to do that. So I did want to make you aware that if you hear that out there, that is the case. I don't think it's many districts that have not, or that won't be submitting a plan, but I do know that there's some out there. So what you have in your packet, you'll have a breakdown where you can actually see the specifics, but that's the proposal that we're bringing to you. That's the framework of what we would like to see if indeed we do have to implement a differentiated pay plan.
Two things I'd like to add. Number one, if you will remember on the 25% rule last year when we were made to come up with a plan, and we worked hundreds, if not thousands of hours on that only to have it scrapped at the last minute. So we determined that we were not going to go all the way down deep until we knew this was going to, once burned, sort of twice shy on it. That's number one. And number two, if we are given the go-ahead, knowing that we're going to have funding for it, then we would certainly go back to teachers and the same stakeholder groups and let them be a part of the decision-making process. This is not somebody come back for your approval, obviously, but we need to have the stakeholders, the teachers, actively engaged in this again.
And Dr. Ellis as well, that was very important to the PAC committee, that since we don't have the specifics and we're not saying, what is a leadership position for this? What is our growth model going to be? And we assured the PAC committee that we would be coming back to them. We just need to know, is this really going to happen? How's it going to be funded? What are the parameters? And then we'll put together a plan and come back to you and make sure we have all that input.
Motion? Motion to approve, Ms. Savage. Thank you. Second, Mr. Guzman. Discussion? Questions?
I just have one, and you may not have the meat on the bones yet to answer this, but when it talks about demonstrating predetermined levels at each individual school, you'll have to figure out what level at what school. It wouldn't be necessarily the same across the board for all schools, I wouldn't think.
I don't think it would be the
Right.
same across the board. And I think we would probably look at what has been done in the past with the ABC model, because that's something we looked at that we thought was kind of successful before. But we wanted to look at something that, what we've worked hard with the PLC process is to say, even those teachers that have content areas that aren't core areas, even they are impacting the performance of our students. So by that, we want to have a growth model that ensures that things that all teachers are doing are leading to that growth. So no, we don't really have the meat on the bones at that point, but we would keep, that's kind of our paradigm. We would keep that in mind. What can we come up with that will reflect the hard work of all the teachers?
And at this point, let me understand this correctly. If the funding is somehow approved for this, we'll flesh out the rest of the plan, and it will come back to us as a board for approval.
It will come back to you for approval after we've had
Right.
extensive teacher and stakeholder input.
Understandable. I just want to make sure I heard that clearly. Thank you. With that said, are there any more questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? It's getting late. Somebody kicked me. Thank you. That was unanimous. And now we will get Ms. Morris up there.
Good evening. Again, we have 4 policies for your approval tonight. And these all came before the Board of Education back at your November meeting. They initially went to the policy committee. They were reviewed by you all. They went back to the policy committee, and the policy committee has forwarded them to you all for approval tonight. So I will go through each one of those individually. Okay, the first one is 126, emergency drills. There were no proposed changes to this, and the policy committee has brought it forward.
I make a motion that we approve 1-26 emergency drills, and this comes from policy, so we do not need a second.
Thank you. All those in favor of 126 emergency drill, raise your hand, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're good with that one. Let's move on to 37.
Yes, 37, prohibition against unlawful discrimination, harassment, and bullying, and this is the policy for employees.
This once again is coming out of policy 3-7, prohibition against unlawful discrimination, harassment, bullying, parentheses, employees, close parentheses. So I make a motion that we approve.
Coming from policy? That's fine. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. 4-7.
4-7 is the companion policy to 3-7, which is applicable to students.
I make a motion coming out of policy that 4-7, prohibition against unlawful discrimination, harassment, bullying, parentheses, students, close parentheses.
Thank you. All those in favor of 4-7, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And 5-6.
This is the final policy for your review and approval tonight, Exceptional Children's Program.
I bring for approval 5-6, exceptional children's program for approval.
All those in favor of 5-6, programs for exceptional children? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Unanimous on that also.
Thank you.
We do have a closed session decision, don't we?
Mr. Chair, I move to affirm actions taken in closed session tonight.
Personnel. So we don't.
So that motion is sufficient.
You don't need to approve it. You made a decision to close session.
Oh, so we don't have any closed session decisions then.
I withdraw the motion.
I'll accept that withdrawal. Board comments, please.
Mr. Chair, I appreciate the hospitality tonight, and also I'd like to commend the superintendent and her staff, particularly Dr. Jeffries, Jared McGraw, and the safety folks. All my contacts in the law enforcement and emergency services community spoke highly of how we interacted and meshed with the mass casualty plan and execution of that plan yesterday. Bad situation, but it was handled well. We plan for bad things, and it's good to know that when they do occur, that we're prepared to respond. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Again, thank the staff here. Announcements?
Facilities on January 28th at 08:30 in the boardroom at central office.
Again, I'll just reiterate my announcement. Please get in touch with Ms. Boyd or myself if you're interested in a legislative session and a work session to flesh that out. Don't forget that. Any other announcements? Plus deltas. Let's take pluses. Start with the good stuff. Nobody's going to say the shortness of the meeting?
You did a very good job. I'd like to say one. I'd like to thank Dr. Ellis for the A through F. That was because I asked her to do that before the A through F came out. And I know it's pretty painful to go through it again, but I think it's important to reiterate, especially right before A through F comes out, that we understand that completely. So thank you for going through that for us.
Deltas? I can't do this one.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Ms. Savage. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.